Have you ever wondered why you feel so drained after spending time with certain people? Even when you've done everything right, you've been kind, you've said yes, you've shown up with your best self, and still you walk away feeling empty, invisible, maybe even used. You gave your time, you offered your energy, you kept the peace, and yet something inside feels off. There is a hidden cost to always being nice, and it's far greater than most of us are willing to admit, because behind that practiced smile, behind that soft, agreeable tone, lives a soul quietly pleading to be seen, not for what it gives to others, but for who it truly is. Maybe you've felt it too. A dull ache in your chest, a weariness that no amount of sleep seems to fix, a quiet irritation that creeps in when someone asks for just one more thing. You keep saying yes, because that's what good people do, right? Or maybe that's what you were trained to do. Carl Jung, one of the great minds in psychology, once said, "The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are." But how can you become who you truly are if every single day you're busy becoming who others expect you to be? If your energy is constantly flowing outward to accommodate, to soothe, to keep the peace, then what's left for you? This is not an attack on kindness. This is not a call to become cold or distant or unfeeling. This is a mirror held gently to your face, to the quiet exhaustion behind your eyes, to the tightness in your chest when someone asks too much, to the version of you that's been giving and quietly wondering, when is it my turn? I'm not here to blame you. You've done what you thought was right. You've carried more than your share. You've shown up with love over and over again. But maybe now it's time to ask the question, what has this really cost you? Today, I don't want to speak to your smile. I don't want to speak to the words you've rehearsed to keep things pleasant. I want to speak to the part of you that's tired, the part that longs to feel safe enough to say no, to rest, to be real. Because this isn't just a video. This is a gentle rebellion, a quiet invitation, a soft awakening. Let's begin. And part one, nice is not the same as kind. There's a difference between being kind and being nice. They may look the same on the outside, but inside they come from entirely different places. Kindness comes from strength, from inner clarity, from a grounded, conscious choice to give freely and with integrity. Niceness, on the other hand, often comes from fear. Fear of rejection, fear of confrontation, fear of not being liked, fear of disappointing someone, fear of being alone. And most people who are nice aren't nice because they're just naturally good-hearted. They're nice because they were taught to be. Since childhood, many of us were conditioned to believe that our worth was tied to how comfortable we made others feel, that our safety depended on being liked. When we said yes quickly, we were praised. When we stayed quiet, we were considered well-behaved. When we smiled through discomfort, we were told we were mature for our age. But when we said no, we were punished, scolded, shamed, dismissed. And so we learned. We adapted. We built a survival strategy around agreeableness. We became hyper-aware of others' moods, quick to smooth over conflict, desperate to avoid rocking the boat. We learned to suppress our anger, to minimize our own needs, to smile when we wanted to cry, to say it's okay even when it wasn't. And with every act of self-denial, with every quiet betrayal of our boundaries, we told ourselves we were doing it out of love. But the truth is, that wasn't love. It was absence. Not absence from the other person, but absence from ourselves. Because every time you betray yourself to keep the peace, every time you silence your truth to avoid discomfort, every time you pretend to be okay just so someone else doesn't feel guilty, you are not being kind. You are disappearing, bit by bit, choice by choice, smile by smile, until one day, people stop seeing you. Not because they're cruel, but because you've trained them not to. You've shown them a version of yourself that is always available, always agreeable, always fine. And so, they believe you. But inside, a quiet resentment begins to grow, a slow burning ache that says, this isn't who I really am. This isn't fair. This hurts. You start to feel invisible, not because others erased you, but because you erased yourself, one polite sacrifice at a time. Carl Jung once said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. And sometimes, being nice is exactly that. A way of avoiding our truth, of staying small, of hiding in plain sight. But here's the thing. You weren't born to be small. You weren't born to live your life as a placeholder in someone else's story. Kindness is still a virtue. But true kindness includes you. It includes your truth, your voice, your number, your limits. Being kind doesn't mean never upsetting anyone. It means being real and doing so with care. So the next time you feel that old pull, that urge to smile when you want to scream, that compulsion to agree when everything inside says no, pause and ask yourself, am I being kind, or am I just being afraid? Part 2, the mask you wear to be loved. Carl Jung spoke of something called the persona, the social mask we wear to be accepted. It is the version of ourselves we shape and polish for the world to see, the polite, agreeable, well-behaved version. The version that knows what to say, how to smile, how to fit in. At first, the mask feels useful. It helps us survive. It keeps us safe. It earns us praise, admiration, approval. But over time, we don't just wear the mask, we become it. You've worn it so long, so convincingly, that even you forget it's not really you. You've smiled through pain. You've laughed at jokes that hurt. You've said yes when your soul screamed no. And beneath it all, beneath the calm exterior, the pleasant demeanor, the practiced empathy, is something far more raw, more honest, more sacred. A voice, a quiet voice that whispers, I'm tired. I'm tired of pretending. I'm tired of carrying the weight of being who everyone else needs me to be. This voice is not selfish. It is not ungrateful. It is not dramatic. It is sacred. Because that voice comes from the self, the deep, authentic center of your being, the part of you that Jung believed was your truest essence, the part that does not perform, the part that does not need to be liked in order to be worthy. And every single time you silence that voice, every time you swallow your truth to maintain the image of being nice, every time you abandon your authenticity to meet someone else's comfort, you pay a price. That price is not abstract. It's not symbolic. It's energetic. Carl Jung believed that the psyche, just like the body, runs on energy. Psychic energy. And just like your body becomes tired when it's overworked, your soul becomes depleted when it is overextended. Every yes that goes against your truth, every smile that hides your pain, every moment you perform instead of simply being, it costs you. Bit by bit, your energy drains. Not because you're weak, not because you're broken, but because you are pouring life force into a version of yourself that isn't real. And the people around you, they don't see the cost. They see the smile, the nod, the easygoing, sure, no problem. But you feel it, deep in your chest, in your bones, in your sleep. In the quiet moments when no one is watching and the mask slips off, just a little. This isn't just burnout. It's not just stress. It's soul fatigue. The weariness of a self that has gone unseen for far too long. Jung's work invites us to peel back the mask, to listen to the voice underneath, to reclaim our energy not by doing more, but by being more honest. Because real connection cannot happen through a mask, and true strength does not come from being palatable. It comes from being whole. Part 3, the hidden cost of being too nice. So, what does being too nice actually cost you? You might think that being nice is harmless, that it's the safe choice, that it keeps the peace and makes life easier. But there's a hidden cost, and it's not small. First, it costs you clarity. Because when you're always focused on what others want, what they need, what they expect, you start to lose track of your own desires. You forget what brings you joy. You stop asking what you want. Your decisions become about avoiding conflict, keeping others comfortable, staying in good standing, and slowly your inner compass becomes foggy. Your yes doesn't feel like a real yes anymore. Your no gets stuck in your throat, and your intuition, that quiet voice within you, grows faint. The more you tune into the needs of others, the more you tune out your own. And that's how you wake up one day. In a job you hate, in a relationship that drains you, in a life that looks fine on the outside, but feels empty on the inside. Next, it costs you connection, real connection. Because when you're always wearing a mask, when you're constantly performing to be liked or accepted, the people around you aren't connecting with the real you. They're connecting with the role you're playing. You may have a lot of acquaintances, you may even be surrounded by people, but still feel alone, unseen, misunderstood. And how could they understand you if you never let them see you? Niceness becomes a barrier. A soft, polite wall that says, "I'm here for you," but never says, "Here's who I really am." Then there's respect. You'd think that being nice would earn you more of it, but often it's the opposite. People don't value what's always available. They don't respect what's too easy to get. And when you constantly say yes, when you bend over backwards to please, you become predictable, even dispensable. Not because you're not worthy, but because you've taught them not to value your boundaries. You've shown them that your needs come second, so they believe you. And perhaps the most devastating cost of all, it costs you time. The one resource you can never get back. All the hours spent overthinking that one text message. All the time spent doing favors you never had the energy for. All the moments you spent managing other people's feelings while yours quietly unraveled. And one day, you realize that much of your life has been shaped not by your truth, but by your fear of upsetting someone else. That's the real cost of always being nice. Not just emotional fatigue, but lost clarity, lost connection, lost respect, lost time. And none of it was ever required for you to be loved. You just thought it was. Part 4, the resentment beneath the smile. But here's the paradox. The more you try to be liked, the more invisible you become. You bend, soften, adjust, all in the hope that if you are agreeable enough, pleasant enough, easy enough, you will be accepted. You will be loved. You will finally feel safe. But what really happens? You disappear. In trying to be everything to everyone, you slowly become no one to yourself. And beneath the surface, resentment begins to grow. Quietly, patiently, like a wound that never got the chance to breathe. You smile, but inside, you ache. You say yes, but your gut clenches and whispers, "Why did I agree to this again?" You keep showing up for others. You keep giving. You keep holding space. But no one shows up for you. At least, not in the way you truly need. And that's the most painful part, isn't it? You do so much. You care so deeply. You give endlessly. And yet, when you're the one who needs support, it's quiet. Too quiet. That's not love. That's not mutual care. That's not compassion. That's self-abandonment. And the tragedy is, you didn't mean to abandon yourself. You were trying to keep things peaceful. You were trying to be good. You were trying to be loved. But somewhere along the way, you forgot that you matter too. Carl Jung believed that healing begins with awareness. He once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." In other words, what you don't face within you will keep showing up outside you. You think your exhaustion is from being too busy, from the long to-do lists, the people-pleasing, the non-stop giving. But maybe it's from being too fake, too filtered, too edited, too careful, too afraid to let the real you speak. That kind of exhaustion goes bone deep. It doesn't come from action, it comes from disconnection. You've learned to perform, to present a version of yourself that others can accept. But behind the performance, there's a self, quiet, waiting, aching to be heard. And here's what I want you to remember. The people who truly love you will not leave, because you finally told the truth. They will not disappear, because you finally said no. They will not punish you, because you finally removed the mask. They will stay. Or they were never really yours to begin with. So let go of the ones who only wanted the edited version of you. Let go of the illusion that being nice is the path to love. And come home. To truth, to clarity, to yourself. Part 5. So how do we reclaim our truth? You might be wondering, after all these years of performing, pleasing, and pretending, how do I come back to myself? How do I find my truth again, when I've been living for everyone else's comfort for so long? The answer isn't dramatic. It isn't loud. It doesn't require a grand declaration or a sudden, bold transformation. It begins quietly. It begins with small acts of courage. Start small. Before you say yes, pause, even for a moment. Notice your breath. Notice your body. Notice if there's a tightening in your chest, a clenching in your stomach, a soft voice that whispers, "I don't want this." That's your truth trying to speak. Breathe before you explain yourself. You don't owe everyone an immediate justification for your feelings, your needs, or your limits. Let silence be a sentence. Let stillness be a response. Let your discomfort teach you how often you abandon yourself just to avoid someone else's disappointment. Pay attention to resentment, not to judge it, but to learn from it. Resentment is a signal. It's your soul tapping on the glass, saying, "You've gone too far again. You gave what you didn't have. You said yes when your body screamed no. You don't need to drown in guilt to reclaim your truth. But you do need to stop ignoring the messages your body sends you every day. And here's something you might not expect to hear. Practice disappointing people. Yes? Really. Practice it. Not with cruelty, not with coldness, but with clarity, because every time you disappoint someone else, but stay loyal to yourself, you heal. You come home. Not to an idealized version of yourself, not to the perfect you that never makes anyone uncomfortable. You come home to you, to your boundaries, to your breath, to your full humanity, messy, emotional, beautiful. Reclaiming your truth isn't about becoming someone else. It's about removing what's not you, peeling away the mask, letting go of the performance, and allowing what's real to rise again. You don't have to get it right every time. You don't have to be fearless. You just have to be willing. Willing to pause. Willing to listen. Willing to try again. Even if your voice shakes, even if your hands tremble, even if you feel the urge to take it all back, just to make someone else feel better. Hold your truth gently, but hold it. Because every time you choose honesty over approval, every time you honor your inner knowing over outer pressure, you reclaim a part of yourself that was lost, and over time, piece by piece, you stop living for acceptance, and you start living in alignment. And that's where real peace begins. The return to wholeness. And maybe, just maybe, this is what true kindness looks like. Not giving every piece of yourself away, not shrinking so others can expand, not saying yes while your spirit silently weeps, no, but giving from a place that is full, from a heart that is rooted in honesty, from a self that is not leaking energy, but radiating it. Because when you are real, your love is real. When you are honest, your care is clean. It doesn't come with hidden resentment. It doesn't come with strings attached. It doesn't come from fear. When your yes is true, it carries weight. It means something. It becomes a gift, not an obligation. And when you stop trying to be nice just to be accepted, you begin to experience something far more powerful than approval. You begin to feel free, not the freedom of rebellion, not the freedom of walls, but the quiet, sacred freedom of a soul that is no longer pretending. That's the real transformation. Not a louder voice, not a sharper tone, but a deeper truth. A truth that says, I matter. My needs are valid. My presence is not something I have to earn. I don't have to perform to be loved. That is the shift. From pleasing to presence, from niceness to truth, from self-erasure to self-respect. And no, this isn't easy. There will be people who don't understand, people who accuse you of changing, people who pull away when you stop bending. Let them. Because your life is not an audition. Your spirit was not designed to be molded into someone else's comfort, and your love was never meant to be extracted, only shared. So as you move forward, let this message live in your daily moments, not as a theory, but as a practice. Pause before you speak. Ask yourself, is this coming from truth or from fear? Let your boundaries be your sacred lines. Let your voice be your homecoming. You don't have to get it perfect. You just have to get it honest. And every time you choose truth over approval, you reclaim another piece of your wholeness, another thread of your self-worth, another breath of your freedom. This is the quiet revolution. Not the one that screams, but the one that softens, that returns, that restores. Because when one person chooses to stop performing, they give others permission to do the same. So if this message stirred something in you, if a part of you exhaled with relief, if you felt seen, if you remembered who you are beneath the mask, then take a moment and declare it. Write in the comments, I choose truth over approval. Let's see how many of us are ready to live unmasked. Let's see how many of us are ready to live whole. And if you're walking this path, know that you are not alone. We're walking it too. See you in the next video. Until then, stay real, stay rooted, stay you.